Hello, I'm Frances from Homestead, and I have a cottage garden update for you. I've gotten the Burgess seed catalog order finally. It came in 2 different sections, which was probably a good thing because it took me a week to get the first delivery planted in the ground, and then the second delivery arrived, and it took me another week to get all of that planted in the ground. It's been a busy month, and so I want to show you what we've got. Now, the plants I got from the Burgess catalog were very tiny. So there might be a little less stability in the camera for this episode because I'm going to be carrying it so that I can give you a really good close-up of the little tiny plants that we've gotten. But some of them already have leaves, so I'm pretty excited to show you that. And we also have made a couple big steps in the cottage garden as far as terrain and landscape has gone. So I want to show you how that's come along. So I'm going to start at the very farthest west end of the cottage garden. Now remember, this whole section is 300 feet long and 50 feet wide. So I've taken on a very large project, and it will probably be a while before it's all full of flowers. But that is my hope. It'll eventually all be full of flowers. A lot of it is bulbs, and so the tulips and daffodils and irises are all going to be coming in at different rates, different times of the year. So it's not going to be all flowers all the time. But I've put in some seeds, plan to be putting in a lot more seeds. So hopefully those will be reseeding themselves every spring, and it'll just be a constant turnover of flowers. So that's my hope. We'll see how this first year goes. The second year will probably be a better determiner of the process or progress. So let's get started. The first thing I want to show you is underneath these 3 pine trees here by the shop. I don't know if you remember during the winter when I talked about my plans for the cottage garden, but I wanted to put a few things that were more shade tolerant under these trees. But right here, I have planted in these 2 back holes, which you can't see yet, is yucca. They have not yet come up. They were very tiny and they just went underground. Those came from Burgess in my second order. So they've only been in the ground about a week. These 3 plants here are the poker primrose. And this one is getting some new leaves, but all 3 died back pretty good. So I'm hoping they're all going to come out like this one here, where you can see the new leaves coming in. As of yet, these other 2 don't have new leaves yet, but I'm hoping they are going to survive. These 5 here are the Hostas, and I've already got some leaves poking through, so I'm very hopeful for the Hostas. It looks like they're going to survive as well. And my plan is also to put some periwinkles cascading down the slope around all of this. The next thing that was a huge project, it took us days and days, was this very point of the driveway, where the driveway and the road divide. And it was such a huge project because it was a huge mound of dirt. It was piled up really high, probably 4 feet at the highest, and it was quite an expansion. As you can see, it's very wide through here. And it came all the way up here to this electrical box from the point down here. Now, I've already placed the stones that I've found in the property. I tell you, I'll show you my rock field in a bit, but this is a lot of big rocks that we've dug out. Some just laying on top of the ground or just partially buried, but I did a fun Zen rake design around the rocks when we got them placed, just because I thought that was a fun thing to do. We, of course, are going to be planting a lot of plants around these rocks, so it's not going to look like this pretty rake design all the time. But until I get them planted, and since it's all sand, it's easy to do this. But all these rocks we set up in different formations and design, and I will be planting a lot of bulbs through here. I've got some daffodils, some iris, I have some periwinkle vines. I also have some succulents that I want to put out here at the point. And of course I'll need to set up a drip for all of that. But I'm hoping to have all of this covered in periwinkle vines eventually, and having the bulbs poke up through. And I'll also place some petunias and pansies in here just for some added color. The other thing I'm very excited about, if you remember the episode where I divided and transplanted the rose bush, I'm now excited to say that the leaves are coming in. Look at these beautiful leaves that are sprouting out. I'm so excited to see these leaves budding out, to know that they're alive and it has survived the torture. 5 of the 6 have started budding, and they are looking beautiful. So exciting to see when that happens. To know I didn't kill it and that at some point I'm eventually going to have some beautiful roses. Now the other thing that I want to talk to you about is that I have the cattle panel arches up. When I first put them up, they were leaning because it's on a slope. So I got them leveled out and they look much better. And from the Burgess catalog plant order, this is the Trumpet Flower. And as you can see, it's very small. So I don't yet have any leaves budding out yet, but I'm hoping to get those before the next month update. And I've planted it right here so it can grow up the cattle panel. I have one on each side. I will be very excited when I see these trumpet flower plants growing up all over this cattle panel arch. Another thing that I got in my Burgess catalog order was the hibiscus. And they sent me 5. I didn't think I was going to get 5. I thought I was going to get 2. But I'm hoping that all 5 are going to survive. But they're extremely tiny. And as yet, it's only been a couple weeks, but as yet there are no leaves budding out. But I'm very hopeful. Another thing in the Burgess order were a few tiny little daylilies that I've scattered about at the lower end. And they had some green on them already, so I was excited to see that. And they're still green, so that's a good sign. Here's another one. And one more. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this in the camera, but creeping phlox was also part of that order. And they haven't looked real good. But this one does have a little bit of green coming out on it. So if nothing else, I've got at least this one. But I had a dozen of them. And if nothing else, I hope we've got some good root system. I've been watering it regular with the straw mulch. And so hopefully they'll all come in beautifully like this one is. Now another big step that I took was to build a bird bath fountain. I am really excited about this. I've seen birds in it already. And it's just rocks that I found. different places on the property. And I bought this bowl at Goodwill. I ordered the solar fountain online at Amazon. And then I just put some pretty rocks in here to kind of hold the fountain in the center. But I'm just so pleased how this has turned out. I managed to find enough rocks that would just rest against each other. This one I also found on the property that I was able to stabilize the fountain. And I really like this. I don't know if you can see it in the shade, but it's a real pretty terracotta stone here in the front. In my seed planting episode, I showed you that I planted flower seeds all around this aspen tree, and they are coming in beautifully. They are looking really good. I'm so excited to have all these here when they get bigger, to have this whole ring of flowers around the aspen. And the aspen is looking so lovely now that it's leafed out. Now, I also told you about my sister coming and helping me plant iris, and they are all coming in so lovely. They're looking nice and green and crisp and tall. There isn't a single one that isn't growing beautiful green leaves after planting. Now, I also mentioned in last episode with the seed planting that I put some nasturtiums here in the herb spiral. They really look wonderful. I can't wait to see them cascading over the rocks. I also planted cilantro over here, and it's already starting to pop up. I also have quite a bit of dill coming in. But all of the herbs look great. Now, around this tree that I thought was dead, I planted all of these morning glories. And they are coming in very nicely, as you can see. I have several of them that have popped up. But also, it looks like some leaves that seem to be coming in here, which I so did not expect. Now, they're only at the base of the trunk so far. So I don't know if that means that the branches are all dead and just this trunk is alive. But it was very surprising to see those few little leaves popping up on this tree that I was sure was dead. Now, also from the Burgess order, I got this hydrangea. And it had some bigger leaves at the top when it was delivered, but those have died away. But it has new ones coming in at the top and at the base. So I'm very hopeful it's going to survive. I was so sad when I saw the big leaves that it had when I planted it turn brown and die. But thankfully, it is coming back. Now, I have another cattle panel trellis here that my hope is to have the wisteria growing up around it. And I got 3 instead of only 2. I was very excited about that. But they are not budding. They are just little stems. So I'm hopeful in another month or so, they might have some leaves growing, might even get some vines climbing up on the trellis that I planted them at the base of. But each of them are just little tiny sticks so far. But I hope to see leaves and some vines sometime this spring and summer. It would be very exciting to see the trellis covered in beautiful green foliage. Now, I have also started these crisscrossing walkways. I have laid down cardboard to prevent grass and weeds growing through the walkways. I'll be covering the cardboard with wood chips once we get our wood chipper back from the shop. And I've outlined it with a lot of rocks that I've found or dug up, but I have a long way to go still. I've got a long way to go. Here's another pile of rocks just waiting to be laid out. Now I want to show you my rock field where I have been collecting rocks from. As you can see here, I've got a pile of rocks ready to be hauled over to the cottage garden. And you can see here where I've dug up rocks. I started out at this edge here, and I've just been digging this whole area here. But this is just a fraction, a fraction of the space where all the rocks are. This whole, I haven't even touched this. Look at all of these. I am barely touching the outer edge or the surface of all of these rocks. This whole field is just piles and piles of rocks. I don't think I'm going to run out of rocks. I think I'll have plenty for all of my walkways in the cottage garden. Another find I'm excited about is this maple tree. I just found it a few days ago, and I've been watering it so that I can transplant it, and I want to make sure I get all the roots I can when I transplant it, but I'm going to put it in the cottage garden. Now another thing that I got done was the lavender. I got it divided into 5 different bushes, 4 small ones, and this one large one. This was the main piece. And it's already starting to get new growth. So I'm very excited about that. To know that it survived the torture of transplanting. As of yet, none of the dahlias are coming in. I'm still hopeful though. I'm still holding out hope for them because I was getting very anxious about these tulips that I planted a month ago. And they just started popping up this week. So I'm very excited and hopeful for the other bulbs or tubers that I have in the ground. Because if these can come up, then probably so can the others. I also transplanted some daffodils that I found near the house over here, as well as these hyacinth that had been all through the trellis garden last year. I dug them out, all their bulbs, and put them in a pot. And once I got the cottage garden set, I transplanted them over here. And they are blooming very nicely. Very excited to have these here. Now when I transplanted the daffodils and hyacinth and tulip bulbs, I didn't have anything set yet of where to put anything. So I just put them in little terraces below the herb spiral. And so I was going to just scatter them all over like I did the iris. I was just going to spread them all about. But as what has happened for the iris, I've got them in places where I need to have a walkway. That's what these strings are, to indicate where I'm putting walkways. So some of these iris I'm going to have to relocate, sadly, because I was just throwing them around for my sister and I to get them in the ground the day that she was here. And I didn't have all the strings up. So now I've got some right in the way of the strings. And I didn't want that to happen with all of these other flowers. So I'm going to have to probably transplant some of them at some point, maybe in the fall. I don't mind so much having this little bit of a terrace here at the base of the herb spiral. It kind of looks cool. But I've got a lot more daffodils near the house that I need to transplant. And I think I'll scatter them more throughout the whole cottage garden. But it was really fun. One daffodil bloomed after I transplanted it. And several of these hyacinth have bloomed. And I'm hoping all the tulip bulbs are going to bloom. I got them from Baker Creek. They came this past winter. So that's my cottage garden update. I have a vegetable garden update and a tree and berry vines and grapevines update for you. And those will be on my next episodes. I'm so excited to see things progressing, and I definitely want to keep track every month of how they're progressing so I can see how well they've been coming along. And I'm hoping you will enjoy that as well. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Please like and subscribe. I am so grateful for you. Until we meet again.